Hello, my loves, and welcome back to another episode of Shots of Serenity podcast. I am your host, Jasmine St. John, and this is a beautiful space to land where we explore ways to welcome peace and love into our lives through mindfulness, soul care, and self exploration. How are you doing, love? Love, 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 love. If you'd go beyond, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm chilling. But even if you need to answer quietly to yourself or take this opportunity to check in and ask yourself, like, how am I really doing? I will say, I want to give like a disclaimer. This conversation, we are going to be talking about grief, as you can see from the title of the episode. And although we're not talking about bereavement, it is still a touchy subject. And so I think that this question is really important because if you don't have the space, if you're already feeling a low capacity, or if you're experiencing some grief and life transition, this can either be really beneficial, supportive, and reassuring, or it can be a little triggering and maybe too soon. And so allowing yourself to check in and see where you are. Of course, I would love for you to save this episode regardless so it can be supportive on your journey. But I really would have loved for you to check in with yourself and ask yourself, like, how am I feeling right now? Right? And so some friendly reminders, the soft landing, we have our Q2 dates up and running. So we have March until June. We'd love to connect with you in person, especially in this intimate setting. Be sure to reserve your spot because it's only 5 people that are allowed on the Sunday and Saturday classes. So we'll have that all in our show note description, and then you'll also see it on the screen as well. So I felt like this was a nice, timely episode. As some of you may know, I experienced my first real experience with bereavement about a year ago from the launching of this episode. And I say my first real experience because I've had people that passed away in my life, but no one so close and intimate family. And so before we get started, I have been trying to figure out what is a year anniversary or an annual practice that I would love to do for my grandpa. I have some thoughts. I'm definitely open to any suggestions that you guys may have or any things that supports you on any anniversaries of any loved ones that pass. So an open heart and an open mind. Let me know your suggestions or again, some practices that you utilize. So grief is the loss of something. Very plain, very simple. As you see, I'm being conscious about saying grief or bereavement because bereavement specifically is when someone passes away. Whereas, as we'll talk about today, grief, it can be an array of things and it's essentially the loss of something. And so I want to acknowledge that this is difficult. The process of grief in general is very difficult, and it is a daily and maybe a lifelong process. And so this is not a hack, right? I say this in all of our sessions. This is not therapy. In all of our episodes, this is not a hack, but it is an invitation, and it's a friendly reminder and permission that you can take your time with this. You're not being asked to speed this up or to have a revelation in a timely manner, right? And so I want to give some examples of not bereavement, of grief. A relationship. Maybe the relationship, there's a breakup, an intimate relationship, a parental relationship, a sibling relationship, a friendship. There is getting older, so a few different life transitions. Maybe you are grieving this age, this rite of passage, this new decade. Maybe you are grieving past versions of yourself. Although it is conducive and beneficial to let go of things that do not serve, it's very difficult as well, especially if it's something that you've really identified with and that's a real experience. Sometimes we grieve expectations compared to reality, what we thought something was going to be, how we thought something was going to play out, how we thought life was supposed to be and look like for us compared to what is in front of our face and what is the reality of the situation at this time. That is also a sense of loss. Sometimes we are grieving the idea of what we wanted. Maybe we really resonated with something before and we no longer resonate, right? We have been doing this podcast. We are in our 6th year. In November, it'll be year 6. And I am pretty sure that there are several things that I've said or agreed with in our beginning episodes that no longer resonate, or maybe I have a different perspective on that. And that is okay. And even grieving the fact that like that's online and that's on the internet, that is a thing. Maybe someone is grieving an unhealthy habit, again, an unhealthy coping mechanism. Maybe you're going through a recovery process and you are grieving the relationship that you had with a substance. Although it may be a very important and needed step of the process, that doesn't take away from how painful and how difficult it is. Maybe you're grieving the fact that you have been informed that you have a chronic illness, right? Like coming to an understanding that like this is something outside of my control. And it's also something that is quite literally going to change my life and the lives of those around me in a way that I'm not even understanding right now. Maybe we're grieving in prison. Maybe yourself or someone has been incarcerated or is about to be incarcerated, and you're grieving your freedom or what was once freedom for you, or vice versa. Maybe you're coming out of incarceration and you are grieving that life. For some people, it's like, you're free. Why are you worrying about it? This has been a part of your identity and a part of your experience for such a long time. And now you have this sense of freedom. Now you have this reminder to make conscious and intentional choices, and you can't be as irresponsible as you were before. The last example I have here is parenting. All right, maybe you're grieving the parents that you really desired and you deserve compared to the parents that you have in front of you. And so something to consider with grief and really is the premise of this conversation is we can accept things and not approve them. Right? Like accepting is freedom. Approving it is not something that we necessarily have to do. And so it could sometimes feel more difficult than death, grief itself, right? And I'm not really comparing the two, but the thought of what if and or the desire to try again is difficult. If you're grieving a relationship, you know the relationship is not conducive. But then you have those thoughts of like, well, dang, what if it does work out? Or what if this person changes? Or whatever the case may be, it can be pretty difficult. I say that because with complete respect and understanding that with bereavement, with death, some people do go through that denial stage. However, there's no reality in which that can change. Whereas the example of dating, you could go back. You guys can have a new relationship. With being incarcerated, you can come out. With a life transition, things can change. With your recovery journey, you can relapse. Like there is seemingly potential, whereas with death, it's pretty definite. And so that's why I feel like it can be a little difficult or more difficult because there's like no closure. It's ambiguous. Like there's seemingly opportunity, even if it's not the right choice. There seems to be this possibility there. There's almost like this lack of closure. There may be an ongoing interaction where you may still need to interact. Maybe you're going through a divorce, which is also something that one can grieve for. And maybe there's kids involved and you still have to interact for the sake of your kids. It may not be on the level that you've had and you've interacted before, but there's still a level of interaction that can make it pretty difficult compared to like, we're divorced, we don't got no kids, I'm done, I don't ever have to see you again. It's still creating this new life now. There is, a new living arrangements, new financial arrangements. And again, I think that is what really adds a layer to grieving. And so I do want to highlight that the goal is not to essentially move on, nor is the goal that you have to approve of said thing, but choosing life in spite of how difficult this is, in spite of how messed up and unfair this is. Can we choose to continue? Can we choose to live life? Can we choose ourselves? A lot of times I think a question is, how can we not run away from the situation or act like this is not happening? But again, accepting and continue to accept that this is a new norm. This is calling you to adjust. This is calling different versions of yourself. And so this is kind of where I want to like land this conversation. One, acceptance does not mean approval. The soft landing, a gentle return to yourself, a space to arrive exactly as you are. No filters, no performance, just presence. If you don't know, we're going to be announcing our offering dates quarter by quarter. So quarter one was so beautiful. Thank you for all of those who showed up, who showed out, who supported. You are greatly appreciated. And for quarter two, i.e. April, May, June, we have April 11th and 12th, which is my birthday month. And we have May the 9th and the 10th and June 6th to the 7th. We so hope to see you there. You can accept something and not approve it. But I wanted to give a few practical maybe ways or examples on how to continue to move through this. As we talked about in the beginning, this could probably be a daily and a lifelong task, but it doesn't have to be unbearable, and it's not impossible to move through. And so the first way, I want to kind of go back to episode 224 and 227 where we kind of talked about thoughts, right? So duality, remembering that more than one thing can be true. And I think we have a whole episode actually on duality. It can be true that, hey, I hate that I didn't have the parents that I needed, and I choose to be the support and cultivate the support and love that I need in this season. One doesn't have to negate the other. I don't have to agree or approve with the fact that my parents showed up in this way, but I can choose to accept that I can't go back. I can choose to accept that I can't change them. I can't choose to accept that maybe a parent passed away. Like I can't choose to and not accept, excuse me. I can't choose to approve that, but it has happened, right? Those dynamics are what it is. And again, this is an example, but with the two things being true, I can choose to say, you know what, as I'm an adult, as I'm growing up, as I have kids of my own now, how can I love and support myself in the way that I need to in this season, while still being frustrated, annoyed, and in disapproval of the fact that like I feel like these people dropped the ball here. And so again, that was a parenting example, but we can keep going. Like I can wholeheartedly understand that alcohol makes me feel so great, so freeing, so liberating, and understand that it's not conducive to the person that I want to become because I'm often inebriated, right? When we're consuming substances, that prefrontal cortex goes offline. Therefore, my decision-making skills is horrible. And that has put me in some really bad decisions, really bad situations. And so although it may be frustrating that my peer can drink or my partner can drink and have fun and they have control, I can accept the fact that that's not my reality right now. And although it is not ideal, I can still live a very fruitful and fulfilling life with that understanding. And so number two is maybe some cord cutting rituals. And so maybe create a release practice or an acceptance practice, right? Or an honoring practice. You guys know I love a good practice. I think life is a practice. We have habits anyways. We do these things consistently regardless whether we're noticing them or not. So why not allow ourselves to create practices and create new habits that are going to be supportive to the person that you're becoming? And so as we're releasing, as we're grieving, as we're letting things go, whether you chose to let it go or you did not, maybe you can have some type of releasing or cord cutting practice. And so I really invite you to think about like the resources and tools we have, your elements, your earth, your fire, your wind, your water. Maybe think about how the stars can support you. What moon cycle are we in? Is it a new moon where the energy is really, really potent? How can we utilize that as well? And so, really allowing yourself to create a practice and energetically releasing cords. And I think these are going to be really helpful for individuals that may be like letting go or recovering from substances or an unhealthy habit or a relationship, whether it is an intimate relationship, a marriage, a friendship, whether it's certain versions of yourself, again, habits that we need to release, and having that like extra spiritual layer of cutting and releasing the energetic cords and the energetic ties that may have been established amongst that relationship. And so, number three is action. Is there something that can be done? Are there boundaries that need to be established? That examples with parents or that example with your ex that you're getting divorced from. Are there boundaries that may need to be established? Yes, we have to communicate and converse with these kids, but maybe when we do drop off, it's in public. Maybe when we communicate, it's in public. Maybe if the other person often gets really rowdy, gets maybe abusive, gets like belligerent, maybe that's a boundary. Hey, if you keep elevating your voice or if you keep talking to me in this way, I'm going to choose to remove myself. Maybe it's boundaries with certain habits. If you're a snacker and you eat late at night, I love a good snack and a good meal. But maybe you are snacking late at night and that is a challenge of yours and you are releasing that unhealthy habit. Maybe a boundary is no snacks in the house. I know that's really difficult, but maybe that's it. Maybe a boundary is putting a lock, putting a code on the pantry or cabinet. And I know these may seem really extreme for someone that may not be experiencing it, but I think that is the complexity about grief and letting things go, is that intellectually in our mind, it's like, yeah, do this. But when we get to that embodiment or the feelings or the real life experiences with it, it is very difficult to let things go, especially if we need to be the one initiating the release. Another action that we can take is like dating yourself. Maybe you're going through a breakup. What if you allow yourself to date yourself and to get to know yourself? What if you're getting to learn the new you? Who are you outside of alcohol? Who are you outside of drugs? Who are you outside of like a sexual addiction? Who are you outside of these things that you have really had challenges with or you've dealt with over these years? Creating new habits and recovery. Do you need some support? Do you need to go off into a detox unit? Do you need to get support of a helping professional? Is there action that can be taken? And last but not least, allowance. There is no specific time that is required. I think ever since that episode that we talked about, that New Year's episode for time, my relationship with time has been a little bit more open, a little bit more nuanced, not as narrow-minded. And so remembering that there is no time for this, allowing your feelings to come and to go, and allowing yourself to release them when the time resonates for you. You got this, especially if you're currently in a season of grief. A lot of times when you're in the middle of the storm, you feel like you cannot see your way on the other side, and that is a very real experience. Take your time, be graceful with yourself, get support that you need. And even when you have to make the decisions that are like small decisions every day being a new day, those small steps make a really big impact. And so, again, you got this. This is a beautiful step that you're listening to conversations like this or even having conversations like this to support you and to hold you accountable. So keep going. And as we talked about in the conversation about stages of change, understand that you are not your mistake, right? You're not the mistake that you made. And that even when you make a mistake, that does not mean that you can't have those sacred returns. This does not mean that you can't get back on said thing. So be graceful with yourself, be intentional with yourself, but also be honest with yourself. You know when it's time to let it go. You know when it's time to release. You know when it's time to move on and to enter a new season of life. And so, although it is difficult, is it imperative? Is it absolutely conducive to the person that you're becoming? Questions that only you know the answer to. So, thank you so much for joining. I hope that you are eating up this new spring season because we love a good spring moment. And yeah, I will see you guys next episode. Bye bye.